I'm Elizabeth Chapin, and this is Treespell. Treespell started with my desire to do a forest and also reading Merlin Sheldrake Entangled Life. And I feel like trees are a beautiful example of how there is no separation and that there's an illusion of things being separate. Treespell is both the myth I'm using of Artemis and the process I'm using in the work is an exercise or an exploration in the disillusion of separation. The myth of Artemis and Actaeon is a story where she is in the forest with her nymphs bathing, and a hunter comes across her bathing and she sees him see her and she turns him into a stag. He is this amalgamation of so many things, and he's every man, both beloved and not. He is a painting and he's a sculpture. And then I started thinking about what it means for her to turn him into a stag and what it means in history for humans to come upon nature and divinity and feel that it's something that they can have or possess or gaze upon. And I like thinking of Artemis as this gaze destroyer. So I painted her body as a young girl. So I painted her when she was 6, and then I painted her all the way up until now she's 24. All of her body changing and her face changing and all of her moods and all of her different hairdos. It makes me feel so emotional because I remember all these parts of her. And I love where the painting gets really messed up and it doesn't make sense. And it looks weird and it looks kind of disconcerting. But then it kind of resolves into another version of her. I like thinking of mythology as a container for all of us to explore who we are as humans. I collaborated with Ghost Pepper Glass. I collaborated with Bill Haddad on the projections. Emma helped me crochet the entrails of the stag. Collaborated with a perfumer in Longview, Texas named Chevalier Dunlap. The process is always becoming too. The process is always in question, and to have other people involved helping me with their input and their feelings about it, and that also creates a lot of in-between spaces and things becoming and unbecoming. I would say every day going into the studio, I never know what is going to happen or how I'm going to do it or how it's going to get resolved. And I've been living in that space for 2.5 years, and it feels so nutritious and delightful to be so outside of the realm of what feels normal and safe to me. I take a picture of every still of the painting, and then they get made into these videos that are not quite stop motion exactly, but they're one still after a next of a painting becoming a painting. They get lumpy, they get unruly. All of that was really important to me because I didn't want just this neat, flat, clean surface on which to have these screens or these projections. I wanted the shapes to feel organic and body-like. In order to map or fit the projections onto these unruly forms, they get greatly distorted. I want people to feel like they're almost walking into the middle of my process or the middle of a painting happening, but also the middle of a tree growing or the middle of a girl becoming a woman or the middle of a fish creature becoming a woman. So the nymph creatures, which my original dream of them was about becoming, and a woman emerging out of the fish mouth and fish tail with like a zippered mouth and kind of becoming herself, but she's also protecting the forest. I made these big giant tails. I made all of these massive paintings that are pond water, frog habitat, and then cut them up into tiny scales and stitch that all on the tail. And so again, that's another example of how I'm creating this painting that's like a 10-foot frog habitat painting, abstract painting, whatever you want to call it, but then I'm destroying it. I've been thinking a lot about creation and destroying, or creation and decreation, becoming, unbecoming. All these puddles are dreaming of the pond or dreaming of being the pond, and so they all intertwine with each other in different ways. You can move them all around, and they all become a whole pond, but they're also puddles. I like too that they reflect, when you walk in the room, they reflect Artemis. and they reflect the trees. And I would sit by the pond and in the woods and record the frogs and record the birds and the wind, and that's part of the playlist for the show. I also wanted it to sound like maybe a spell was being cast over you. I want it to feel shimmering but ominous at times. I realized I needed to learn to weld in order to make these forms. And so once I cut the painting out and sew it with a leather industrial sewing machine, which is very physical and intense just to sew it, I knew that I would have to have blackout curtains. Well, instead of having blackout curtains, let's have forest curtains. I hope that through the undulations of the curtains and the movement of the videos, that in the way that they're being painted slowly, that my brushstrokes themselves will create some majesty that those trees are. But I mean, you can't, and but it's fun to try. I wanted it to feel like you're immersed in a forest, and I hope that when people experience it, that it feels like that immersion, that it feels like sanctuary. For me, making art is a form of sanctuary, and to try to do that every day is activism. It is medicine for this world. I'm working through what it means to be someone who feels all the feelings of the world, but doesn't let my sorrow or my anxiety or my helplessness keep me from trying to play with the world and offer sanctuary to the world in the way that I can, even in the darkest of times, and then maybe especially in the darkest of times. I hope that people feel invited into that process, and that it doesn't feel like I've set up this world for you to look at, but that I've been creating something that is still becoming, and that by people being part of it, it becomes something else, and that it's this ongoing entanglement.